Horizon Forbidden West has long been one of my most anticipated PS5 titles. When I saw its debut in late 2021, I had played some of Horizon Zero Dawn, but I hadn't finished it yet. As I finished the game in preparation for this review, I learned that waiting had been a huge mistake. Learning about Aloy and the world she inhabits led me to realize I had been sleeping on one of the last generation's greatest games. But it also placed some lofty expectations on Forbidden West for me. Could Guerilla's follow-up capture the same magic of the original, and most importantly for me, where would the story go from here? Horizon Forbidden West takes place 6 months after the events of Zero Dawn. Aloy is following a new threat that appears and leads her to the edges of Meridian and further beyond in search of a way to save the world from impending disaster. If you haven't played Zero Dawn yet, Forbidden West will catch you up to speed, explaining what happened in the last game and what Aloy's mission is. I love seeing Aloy starting out her adventure as an accomplished hero known far and wide. The way the people around Aloy react to her feels fitting for someone who single-handedly saved the world just a handful of months ago. All too often in games, it feels that main character's heroism is forgotten in the next new entry in an attempt to make the player feel like an underdog trying to earn the goodwill of the people around them. I'm glad that Guerilla has opted instead to make Aloy's reputation one befitting a hero. It makes her a much more believable world after all. Who wouldn't know about someone who saved the world? This remains true as Aloy seeks to venture out into the unknown lands of the titular Forbidden West. Early on you encounter a new tribe, the Tenakth. The Tenakth are essentially the ruling faction in the West, but there are other clans out there that you'll get a chance to meet and interact with during your journey, each with their own memorable characters that will become key to the story as time goes on. Forbidden West's story absolutely floored me. My expectations for what I would see and experience in Aloy's return weren't even remotely close to the mark, and I mean that in a good way. The plot is often unpredictable, and the enemies you face are not at all what you would expect, even if you've played the first Horizon. There are moments where some upcoming events were telegraphed a bit too much in my opinion, but when it managed to surprise me, it did so in spectacular fashion. Aloy's battle to save the Earth escalates in ways I never could have imagined, and I absolutely love it for that. By the time I rolled the credits some 50 hours later, I was already begging to see what's next for the inhabitants of Guerilla's post-apocalyptic Earth. And the Earth has never looked as good as it does in Forbidden West. Zero Dawn was already one of the best-looking games on the PS4, but Forbidden West's PS5 version surpasses it in every way. There are 2 modes to select from, as is becoming standard with PS5 games: Fidelity and Performance. As the name implies, Fidelity gives you the best possible visual presentation, rendering at 4K and targeting 30 frames per second, while Performance mode appears to be 1080p at 60 frames per second. There isn't a right choice here. Both modes look good and perform well. I played half the game in Performance mode and the other in Fidelity mode. It can be jarring to switch between them, but in the end I found I preferred the visuals to be as sharp as possible. The world is incredibly detailed in Fidelity mode, and everything is noticeably softer in Performance mode to hit that 60 FPS target. I suspect I'll end up being in the minority, but once I saw what the PS5 could do with Horizon's world, I couldn't turn back. Every time I paused the game, especially during cutscenes, I'd be left in awe of just how much detail is present in the world. NPCs have seen some major improvements in their facial animations as well, making the world feel more alive outside of the main quest line. I found myself ignoring my mounts and running across the open world just to take in the scenery. Climbing up mountains and looking over sweeping vistas is breathtaking, but there are moments that remind me that this is still a game. As I ran across Horizon's vast landscape, I'd see trees and bushes pop in from a distance. On PS5, I was surprised to see some brief loading screens during fast travel as well. These are only minor gripes though, and something I didn't pay much attention to when I was looking around the world for new things to find or machines to hunt. There's so much to do in Forbidden West's expansive world, but it never feels overwhelming. If you've ever played an older Assassin's Creed game, you'll know exactly what I mean by that. Forbidden West is packed with things to discover and small areas to explore, but the map isn't crowded with objectives to pull you away from the main quest line. Striking a balance between offering too much and feeling sparse is hard to do, but Guerilla has pulled it off masterfully. As I would travel between missions, I'd find myself wanting to explore ruins, climb tall necks, and take on cauldrons. In addition to all of these, there are plenty of human settlements for you to find as well, and this is where you'll find some of your most important waypoints. Each settlement is packed with side quests, gear upgrades, and opportunities to craft using components you gathered on your way. When I started playing, I would try to clear every side mission before moving on to another settlement, but I realized that if I did that, I wouldn't be able to complete the game in time for this video to be ready. Seeing Aloy's interactions with people in these settlements was consistently one of my favorite things about the game. Forbidden West's Aloy has pulled back the curtain on the reality she inhabits, and as a result, she struggles to connect with some of the obviously out-of-touch beliefs her contemporaries hold sacred. When she has to communicate with others, she has to adjust her speech to fit the language of those without her intellect or understanding. It feels like watching someone explain computers to their grandma, and I just can't get enough of it. In addition to friendly settlements, rebel outposts dot the landscape as well, inviting Aloy to clear them in order to add another fast travel point to the map. Campfires are still around if you prefer to take the safest route possible, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to clear an area of enemies and reclaim it as my own. New machines inhabit the West as well, rekindling the sense of fear with each new encounter that I loved so much in Zero Dawn. Just like its predecessor, Forbidden West encourages you to approach enemies with trepidation. Despite being a seasoned veteran, Aloy will still go down easily if you try to take down machines without a plan. Most of the times I died were caused by my own impatience. It turns out fighting a bunch of dinosaur robots with a bow and arrow is a bad strategy. The focus is still the centerpiece of Aloy's toolkit, allowing her to track enemy movement, tag weak points, and learn information about the machines she's up against. Combat remains largely unchanged in Forbidden West. If you mastered Zero Dawn's combat system, you'll be right at home here. The core loop of stalking an enemy, creating a strategy to take them down, and dodging like your life depends on it remains the same, but Aloy does pick up a few new tricks along the way, thanks to the radically different skill tree system. Forbidden West's skill tree is more complex than that of its predecessor, with a total of 7 trees available, each of which contain many more options than were previously available in Zero Dawn. Passive buffs to attack power are nice, but I enjoyed the unique skills I was able to learn, giving Aloy the ability to do things like increase her critical hit rate or regenerate health in the middle of a fight. They're great skills, but only being able to equip one of them at a time felt needlessly limiting, since the skills themselves were seldom enough to turn the tide in a battle that wasn't going my way. There are also a host of weapon abilities that vary in usefulness, but being able to knock 3 arrows and fire them into a machine's weak spot is satisfying. Overall, Forbidden West feels like an upgraded version of its predecessor, and that's a good thing. If you've recently played Zero Dawn like I have, it's easy to pick out the visual upgrades, like the cutscene lighting that persists throughout the whole game, or the smaller changes like quests that have you following a trail no longer requiring you to re-examine the tracks every few steps. Of course, there are also changes to the Horizon formula that are far more noticeable. Aloy's key gear upgrades make traversal and puzzle solving much more interesting. The first and most noticeable of which is the shield wing, which is just a bit reminiscent of Link's paraglider from Breath of the Wild. But you know what? I'm not even mad. Sailing over Forbidden West's stunning landscapes is absolutely worth the comparisons it'll draw. The game doesn't require much use of the shield wing in the main campaign, but when you do use it, it's always a good time. More often we see Aloy using the Pullcaster, a Batman-style grappling hook that can aid in climbing, ripping down walls, or anything that requires the use of a hook, really. There are other new tricks up Aloy's sleeve in her second outing that I won't talk about here, but the result is the game having an almost Metroidvania-like feeling to it. Every time I ran into something I couldn't do yet, I was excited by the prospect of finding a new gadget that would let me further explore these areas, hoping to find ever more interesting secrets. In addition to new key gear, Aloy has also expanded her arsenal to include weapons like the Spike Thrower. It's reminiscent of a javelin, with an explosive punch. I tried all of these, but I stuck to Aloy's spear and bow. I just found them to be the easiest to use, but I do plan on going back and experimenting with these a bit more. I was disappointed to find that certain ammo types like freeze or fire arrows are still bound to specific weapons. That never made sense to me in Zero Dawn, and I was hoping Guerilla would change this mechanic in Forbidden West, but I'm still saddled with having to carry around several different bows to exploit enemy weaknesses, which I found to be a bit cumbersome. I'd rather have to cycle through different ammo types during a fight than select different bows in the heat of battle. I also would have loved to see Aloy get some new melee weapons at her disposal, but her spear still serves its purpose well, and the further along I got in Aloy's quest, the less these issues bothered me. As I continued to learn more about the fate that befell the Old Ones, Horizon's name for what is essentially a future version of our civilization, and the world around me, I became more interested in where Aloy's quest would lead her. Seeing returning friends like Varl and Erend join Aloy alongside new allies, the realization that I was playing through a story that will be talked about for decades to come slowly dawned on me. The more I peeled back layers of the mystery surrounding what is happening to the planet, what's causing it, and how it needs to be fixed, the more I felt like I was playing a game on par with the original Final Fantasy VII. In fact, in the decades that I've played games, few of them have managed to craft a narrative that so thoroughly entertained me as that of Forbidden West. During my time playing, I would often be so enthralled, so unable to put it down, that I would kill my DualSense and have to exchange it for another in order to keep going. The last time I did that was in 2017 with Breath of the Wild, a game that stands among my favorites of all time. If it isn't clear, Horizon Forbidden West isn't just a Game of the Year contender for me, but in several years from now, I imagine I'll be touting it as one of the best games of this generation. That wraps up my review of Horizon Forbidden West for the PlayStation 5. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to Good Vibes Gaming for more reviews just like this one. Ring that notification bell to be the first to know each time a new video goes up. We're fully Patreon supported, so if you could head over to patreon.com/gvgaming to find out more, that would really help out the channel so much. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.